Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Leadership Bootcamp, Leadership at All Levels. This is our final teaching session as we talk about a commitment to continuous improvement. Okay, so next week, at this same time, a week from today, which is a little bit out of sequence, but we wanted to get, when we sat out the schedule, we wanted to get it in before, Canada Day holiday celebration stuff and everything, and the launch of summer. So next week when we get together, we'll do a recap of all the things that we've learned. We will hand out certificates, certificates of completion, certificates of participation, or no certificate at all. So there's those three levels: certificate of completion, participation, and nothing. And then your final assignment. Now, Ian, you might say, oh, how do I make sure I get a certificate of completion? The number one way to make sure you get a certificate of completion is make sure you turn in your one thing. The number one way to make sure you don't get a certificate of completion is no one thing. So if you came to every single session, opened up every single email, because remember now, I can see every email that you open, I can see every video that you watch, I can see how long you watch that video. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, baby. Don't be fooling me with your, oh, I love it. How come you don't watch anything? Oh, well, that's kind of funny, Ian, because, I meant I love you. Well, then why don't you watch me? That's the old, I said to my wife, you are getting thin. I was fat before. Oh. So, how many of you guys in the room know what I'm talking about? You don't go there. Anyways, my point is, I know all that. Well, what if somebody never physically came in the room? How many of you know that was okay? Because we never said you had to physically be here. That was the whole point of the thing being online. Like a lady emailed me today and said, Ian, looks like I'm never going to be able to come because she's not able to come today. And she said, can I still come to the celebration? And I said, well, you've turned in your one thing, because she had. And I can see here that you've watched every video, or at least a portion of every video, and you've opened up the email. Now, is there anybody that has no idea what I'm talking about right now when we talk about your one thing? Everybody know? Okay, remember we said we were going to make a commitment to the one thing that we were going to get better at. And if you look at the end of every handout, what is there? There's a page that says, make your commitment, your one thing. Now, it's not at the end of this handout, but all the other ones. And remember, you were sent the link. Or you could just go to commitment.rmwbleaders.ca. So, I would just strongly encourage you, if you haven't done that yet, make sure that you do that. Make sure that you do that.
How do I check if I did it? I can't remember.
I'll check and see.
That's good. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Okay, and just to make it easy for you, on Monday when you get your email, I'll have that link in there again. Because remember, the whole point of this thing was for you to get better. So making the commitment, very important. Okay, somebody tell me something that through the lens of this program, you saw in play during the challenge of the last 10 to 14 days. Was there anything that we've talked about that you saw going on? So through the lens of the Leadership Bootcamp activity, did you notice anything? Or did you see anything? Or did anything stick out to you through the last challenge that was faced? Or any observation you made during it? Come on in. No? What did you see? What did you see around pride? Remember, we just had a long conversation over the last couple weeks. We talked about pride in 3 emails. Did you see pride displayed before or after, and why? Did you see people taking greater responsibility than they had normally been taking the week before, and why? Okay, so you saw it, but why did you see it? What was the catalyst to get people to take greater responsibility than they may have literally just a day before? How many of you agree with me? You saw people go well above and beyond the job that they did even the day before. And maybe you were even surprised by some people, how they stepped way outside of what they were normally done. And you might have even been like, wow, I didn't know they could work that hard. Or, wow, they never volunteer for anything. Or, wow, they are usually a selfish you-know-what, but look at them go now. Did any of you see those kind of things? Why?
Commitment.
Okay, a commitment. So it was a commitment to what?
The community.
Okay, a commitment to the community. Okay, what else? An obligation or a sense of it, right? What else? There was a need. What else? Because let me ask you this. Can you imagine if everybody just performed at 75% of what we saw the last 10 days, 14 days? What would this thing be like? So the capacity is there. It just took a crisis to bring it out. Correct? Here's the interesting thing that I'd ask you to thoughtfully consider, because there are some learnings from this. And it was learnings that I observed a long time ago. I learned a long time ago that on a community level, shared vision, shared experience, and shared victory builds a sense of community. A shared vision, a shared experience, a shared victory. Now, why everyone performed so well could probably be boiled down into a couple things. There was an absolute clarity around a shared vision. And the vision was this: people are hurting, we need to do something about it. Let's protect property, people, and a community. That was the shared vision. How many of you would agree? Then everybody had a shared experience. We sweated together, we ran together, we did this together, we planned together, we answered the phone together, or we supported the people that were doing those kind of things. Even if the support was just, hey, hang in there, you're doing a great job, or hey, way to go, you're the best, or whatever. There was a shared experience. And now, in the aftermath of it all, there's kudos. Hey, great work. The president of Keanu College, hey, great work. And other people in the community, friends and relatives and television and all this, great work, great work, great work. Shared victory. Shared vision, shared experience, shared victory creates a bond. And the first bond that's created is a bond of trust. It's a bond of trust that's created. The next thing that's created is a sense of pride. So some of you, when I said good afternoon today, you're like, good afternoon. And then I said, how do you think you did the last couple of days? And some of you went like this: we did great. I mean, you could see the physical change from, oh, Ian's here, that's great. How did you do? Oh, we did great. So thank you for treating me like chopped liver. But anyways, trust, pride, shared vision, shared experience, shared victory. Now here's the funny thing. The funny thing is, this usually comes out in crisis. Town hall burns down, everybody rallies. Kid in a rural community is sick, got to go to sick kids in Toronto, everybody rallies. Usually this comes out in crisis. How many of you would agree with that? But it's always there. So when I'm talking about being a catalyst for responsibility, as we had the last 3 weeks, instead of it having to come out in crisis, could I be a catalyst to bring it out? Could I create the preconditions for it coming out? And if I could I do it intentionally? That was the whole point of being a catalyst for responsibility. These things that you saw demonstrated on the part of your coworkers and community members and all that, they didn't just come out of the blue, they pre-existed. It just took a catalyst to make it happen. Now, here's another funny thing for you to thoughtfully consider. It didn't used to be like that. Huh? That used to come out of people more often than it does today on a community setting. When we wanted to build a place of faith in our town, what would we do 100 years ago? What would we do? We'd build the church or the mosque or the synagogue, right? If we wanted a ball field 40 years ago in our town, what would we do? Would we go to the park planner and say, hey, can we pass a bond and build a park? Do we do that? What do we do? You called up your friends, you called up your family, and you went and you built it. And you put in some wood, and I put in some fence, and you cooked a meal, and you shared some water, and we all came together and we built it. And look at what happened. We had a shared vision. We want a ball field, or we want a place of faith, or we want a road. And then we went and did it together. And then we got it completed. We had trust, we had community pride, it all was developed. But as we became more sophisticated and other people started doing those things for us, the opportunity for us to have a shared vision, shared experience, and shared victory became fewer and fewer and fewer. Now all of a sudden it's this. Even though I live next to you, I have no idea who you are. Even though I live next to you, I never share a vision with you. Even though I live near you or even next to you, we never have a common experience except perhaps a festival or a barbecue. We never sweat together. We never go through difficulty together and then overcome that. And then we wonder why there's no bond between us. There's no trust between us and there's no pride. So as leaders, what I hope that you took away from the experience, beyond just the vocational learning, did we do our jobs well? Were we good at what we did? So on and so forth, whether we were directly involved or as supporters. Hopefully what you took from it was there's some key ingredients that if I put them in intentionally and strategically and proactively, I might get the same result. I might get people to go beyond what they normally do. And once I can get them to do it once and twice and 3 and 4 times, would you agree with me it'll start to become the standard, yes or no? Yes. So, what I learned from it is it reinforced in me some truisms. That if we can create an environment where there's a shared vision, where we can create an environment where there's a shared experience, where we can create an environment where there's shared victory, we're going to build deeper trust and create a significant amount of pride. All of you that work together through this thing now have a bond through a shared experience. And the next time there's a difficulty or a challenge, that bond will hold. So the challenge for community leaders is, how do you make this happen without a crisis? How do you choreograph it? The challenge for us as aspiring leaders is, how can I make it happen in the workplace? Not a negative, but a positive. So whether I'm being a catalyst for responsibility through buy-in or pride, or as I posted and I sent out on Monday, or I'm doing it through the change process. How many of you have ever been involved in a change in your department or in your work area? Exactly. Ian, we're involved in it every 4.5 hours. It's RMWB. Exactly. Listen though, I posted that video and I sent that handout to you, not because I want you to learn about a change process. I do want you to learn about a change process. But I want you to learn how change and the process of implementing change can actually be this. We have a shared vision, we have a shared experience, we have a shared victory. We'll build trust and pride. The change process can actually be a catalyst for responsibility. So I want you to watch it. It's 24 minutes long. Now, Ian, I don't have 24 minutes, okay? 6 minutes this week, 6 minutes the next week, 6 minutes the next week, 6 minutes the next week. Fine. But I'm giving you a comprehensive way to implement change in any department, in any organization, in any community. They're basic fundamental steps. But I don't want you to just look at them through the lens of a change process. I want you to look at them through the lens of this. How do I create deeper trust and pride amongst a group? Well, I don't want to manufacture a crisis, but I can use the change as the crisis. We can have a shared vision, a shared experience, and a shared victory. And we'll talk about the next step of that today. All right, so what are we going to talk about the next 3 weeks? So today we're going to introduce the final competency. And then next week we'll get together and do as I talked about, and then there'll be the final assignment, and then that following week we're done. So no more pithy emails from Ian on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then by Wednesday you're like, Ian, come on, dude. I didn't even get a look at Monday. What are you doing to me? So no more of those. We're done in a few days. But this last 3 weeks, we're going to talk about something you've heard about. You've heard about. And you've heard about it so much, it's almost become trite. And that is this. The final competency of today's effective leader is continuous improvement. And a commitment to continuous improvement. How many of you ever heard that term before? Raise your hand if you've heard that term. Continuous improvement. Who can tell me what it is? What's continuous improvement?
Just always committed to learning and finding new ways to.
Okay. Always committed to learning and finding new ways. Okay, anybody else? Who can tell me where it comes from? Where does it come from? Do you know?
Taking pride in my work, I always want to learn more.
Okay. Okay. So she said, taking pride in my work, I always want to learn more. But does anybody know where the management philosophy, continuous improvement came from? Or total quality management, or any of that? What was the root of that? Who was the guy? Who was the father of it? Anybody know? Who said that? So she said it. Leanne said Edward Deming. Now, she either knew that or she read it on the handout. I'm not exactly sure. Okay, here's the backstory. How many know there's always a backstory? So here's the backstory. So right after World War II, there was a place called Japan. How many of you heard of Japan? And what was the deal with Japan? Anybody know? After World War II, what was the deal with Japan? It was ruined. It was completely and totally devastated. Now, why was that a problem for all of the Allied countries? Why was that you got to think a little bit. Now we're taking a little journey in history. Why was that a challenge for the Allied countries?
They had a chance to take one of the axis of evil and make them an ally and help build them back up.
Okay, what he just said is accurate. So we had a chance to take a country that was against us, we could help build them back up, and then they'd be for us. And if you know anything of what was going on after World War II, there was an alternative that Japan might turn to, and what was it? It started with a C. And everybody knew that was bad. That was the environment of the day. So the Allies knew this. We had to rebuild the country. And we had to rebuild it quick. So they took a bunch of people, including this guy Deming, and they sent them to Japan. So who was Deming? Well, Deming was a mathematician, or an analyst is a better term. He was an author, he was a business guru, he was a lot of things. But mostly he was about building business and analyzing leadership in business and the like. And they take this Deming, and the U.S. government sends him to Japan. Deming, go rebuild the manufacturing sector of Japan. Oh, okay, I'll get right on that. Flies over. When he gets there, he experiences something he's never experienced. It was actually a cultural phenomenon that he had not come in contact with. The concept, and my wife speaks Japanese, I don't, so I always mispronounce this. The concept was a concept called Kaizen or Kaizen. The idea was that the cultural idea, and that's an important term, cultural, was that a human being never stops growing. A human being never stops on their path to enlightenment. That every day they grow, and every day they journey, and every day they become more wise and educated. And that was true honor, was every day growing. And guess what he compared that to? He compared that to his experience in the Western culture. Because the Western culture, how many of you would agree with me, was something like this. One day I'll make it. And once I've made it, what do? Do I keep growing? No, because I made it. What do you mean keep growing? I've made it. I got my place in Mexico. I got my place here in Alberta. Life is good. I've made it. I don't have to go to work anymore. I don't have to grow anymore. I don't do anything anymore because I made it. How many of you agree with me that most of us have bought into that lie? That I'm going to work my tail off and then I'll come to a place where I don't have to do that anymore. Well, that was fundamentally different than what he was experiencing. Because what he was experiencing is we just always get better. We always are looking to improve ourselves. That was true honor, that was true enlightenment, was always working to get better. Now what's interesting about that is, you look at ancient Greece, you know what the term was there? Earte. Or whether it was other Eastern cultures, like the Hebrew culture of sojourning, but many others as well. This concept that I would continue to improve in my life was in complete contrast to this idea of, I'll just make a YouTube video and I'll make it. So here's what Deming said. Could I capture that and bring it into business? Could I capture that and bring it into the workplace? In other words, could we fix things before a customer complained? Could we come up with a new product before anybody got tired of the old? Could we clean that light fixture the day before it got dirty? And could we take a cultural way of being and translate it into the workplace? Well, guess what he did? And he helped rebuild Japan into a manufacturing juggernaut. And then he took those same concepts and he came back to the States and to North America, and he got with the big three automakers and took them to a whole nother level. And then it became a way of doing things. Continuous improvement. Now, all of you that have gone to the workshops and the seminars and heard about it, you probably didn't hear that backstory. The backstory. And the backstory is important because it's about a way of being. How many would agree with me? It probably does make sense that I should be working to improve things before people complain. Raise your hand if you think that's true. How many agree with me? I probably should clean that light fixture before it's noticeably dirty. How many of you would agree with that? How many would agree it's probably a good idea for me as a person to be continually making myself a little bit better than I was the day before? Not waiting for a crisis to get better. How many agree with that? Okay, if you all agreed with all that I just said, how come things don't get better? How come organizations, individuals, and communities don't continuously improve? Why is that?
Can't do it all alone.
Okay.
You have to have a team behind you.
Can't do it all alone. It's difficult if everybody else is just saying, hey, slow down, buddy. You're making us all look bad. Right? It's tough to fight that. Why else? Continuous improvement. Why don't we continuously improve? What's that? Because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work. Could be, it's seemingly more difficult. Why else? You got to have the right organizational leaders. They may not want to improve. I always say this to executive leaders. Executive leaders, the biggest challenge to them continuously improving is being good. When a person gets very good at something, they have a tendency to plateau. A better way to say it would be this. On the quest to the pinnacle of great, most people come to the plateau of very good. And when they get to the plateau of very good, they say to themselves, let me just rest here for a minute. Because I'm very good. Everybody knows my name. Everybody says hi to me. When I walk into a room, everyone defers to me. I'm very good. And you know what? Very good is kind of comfortable. And I've worked hard to be here, so let me just hang out and rest for a minute. And then usually what happens over a period of time on the plateau of very good, they start to look around. And as they look around, what they see is the countless bleached bones of the millions of people who on their quest to the pinnacle of great died on the plateau of very good. So one of the challenges is that our leadership gets very good and stops their quest for great. Why else?
Too many chiefs and not enough Indians.
Okay, I'm not exactly sure what that metaphor means, but I know what you mean. So everyone trying to be the boss. Okay, all right. Anybody else?
There's different priorities in your life. You might be continuously improving in one area, but maybe your work suffers as a result.
Okay, so maybe you're consumed with work, and so then you're not improving in your relationships. Actually, those are deteriorating, right? Here's a funny thing. Look at the top. Once you think you've arrived, you've already started your descent. Once you think you've made it, you're already starting to go backwards. Every one of us in this room, at some level or another, have probably bought into the lie. And what's that lie? Well, look at the box. The lie is that things stay the same is the ideal. There is no safety or security in things staying the same. There's only safety in securing and learning how to adapt, to overcome, and to continuously improving. If one can establish continually improving as a part of their being, they dramatically increase their chances for personal security. Status quo. Who remembers their Latin? Who remembers their Latin? What does status quo mean? It means stay the same. And I guarantee you, most of you, if we went into Earl's and sat down and had a beer, or over at the brew pub, or if we went to wherever, Humpty's, that's where I go. I go to Humpty's. For a beer? Well, no, for eggs. I go to Humpty's. I don't drink beer. But if we sat down over some eggs, you would probably say to me, Ian, I cannot wait till I get to a place where things stay the same. I just can't wait till we get to status quo, man. So one thing is to slow down. Here's the challenge with that, and I'm just being honest with you. That's naive. Almost borderline foolish. Because there is nowhere in science, the universe, or on God's green earth that that concept would be supported. Nowhere. There is nothing that stays the same. Nothing. My physical body, nature, the universe, things are either expanding or contracting. They're either growing or they're atrophy. One or the other. So if you've bought into this lie that I will fight for things to stay the same, you're fighting a losing battle. You're fighting against the universe itself because nothing stays the same. Okay, Ian, okay, I'll buy that, but then where does safety and security come from? Safety and security comes from your ability to adapt. Safety and security comes from your ability to overcome. Safety and security comes from your ability to change and remake yourself. As conditions in your world change, you're able to adapt and overcome. That's where it comes from. Now, Deming said, that's true, but how about this, Ian? How about Deming said, how about I start to change before it's needed? How about I improve myself before there's a crisis? How about I work on my relationship before my wife walks in and says, get the hell out? Sounds like you know something about that. I do know something about that. Unfortunately, it was get the hell out that made me change. What if I had been smart enough, Peter, to do it 4 months before? I wouldn't have had to go through the heartache and the pain. How many of you have this t-shirt that I'm talking about right now? Where you had to go through the heartache and pain and then you decided to change instead of just continuously improving. So whether it's operationally in our workplace, before someone files a grievance, let's improve our management practices. Whether it's in our community, before a bunch of citizens complain, let's improve our service practices. Or whether it's in our own home, before our kids get strung out on drugs and go off with some guy that we know they shouldn't be with because they don't have the love and care that they need in the home. Before all those crises happen, let's make a commitment to continuously improving ourselves. How many would say that makes sense? The challenge is, as for all the reasons you just mentioned and many more, there's so many forces working against us that if we don't make it a part of the 80% of our unconscious behavior, the likelihood of it happening is minimal at best. So we have to build systems and processes that will make it a part of who we are. Does that make sense? Okay, so I like this one at the bottom. It's not necessary to change. Survival is not mandatory. I like that one. So, it's not mandatory. You don't need to survive, but obviously the implication is the way to survive is to change. All right, so turn the page. Do I have what? Extras of these handouts? A tuning for you, young lady. I might have to every once in a while borrow it. On the survey, here we go. So you're on the survey page. Now my goal is I've got to give you some ways to make continuous improvement a part of who we are. So we're going to talk about 3 things over the next 3 weeks, a couple of them today and more over the next 3 weeks. But the key is that you start to think in terms of making it a part of your being. See, that was the thing that blew Deming away. It was a part of the culture. So it was already there. He just needed to take it and transfer it into manufacturing. And he knew he was going to be a winner. So now we need to make it a part of your culture personally, and then you as a leader, as you lead at higher and higher levels, you're going to make it a part of the culture of those that you lead and then eventually the organization. It's just what we do around here. We continue to improve. All right, let's look at the survey, and that I'll have to borrow from you, that survey page. Thanks. Okay, I'm going to read them out loud. You circle them. 1, I am totally not like that in any way, shape, or form. 10, I am all like that. I'm all about that, Ian. Okay, here we go. I have life and career goals and a plan for attaining them. I adhere to organizational core values and professional code of ethics. I have a professional development plan for learning that will enhance the effectiveness of my leadership. I have a healthy life balance, mind, body, and spirit. I actively seek feedback from others regarding my performance. I advocate an engagement approach to planning as typically the best approach to getting the best solutions and most effective plans. I promote the value of learning for myself and others. I initiate and maintain networks with other professionals and leaders. I actively seek information that will enhance my knowledge. I seek to participate in opportunities for mentoring. I participate in new opportunities and ways to improve and grow. I actively participate in professional associations and professional certification. Okay. So you're either 1, you're 10, or you're somewhere in between. So over today and the next couple weeks, what I've got to do is try to at minimum get you to buy into this idea of continuously improving. And then I've got to give you some tools and tips to fight against the pressures of our society to make it a part of who you are, and then translate that into a part of the group that you work in, and then the whole organization or community. But where does it begin? I think it begins in your mind. I think it begins with your patterns of thinking. I think it starts with, just like Deming realized it being a culture and being a part of your being, I think it starts with, it has to be a part of your being, a part of who you are as a person. So, what is a pattern of thinking? What's a pattern of thinking? Come on. What's a pattern of thinking? Okay, so that's a way of thinking, negative or positive. But what's a pattern of thinking? Could be planning, the planning process. What do you think a pattern of thinking is? Do any of you know somebody that always makes bad decisions? Now, is it because they're dumb? Don't say their name. Oh. No, she said mindset, but I thought she said Mindy. I was like, what? Like that was some kind of Freudian slip that just came out of her. Mindy! That's pretty funny. But she said mindset. Okay, good. She meant Mindy. She said Mindy. Have you ever met somebody that repeatedly makes bad choices when it comes to relationships? Have you ever met somebody that makes bad choices when it comes to finances? Just always makes bad choices. But in other parts of their life, they make great choices. So I observed that, and I said to myself, is it just that they're dumb? I mean, is it like, what is it? Because, dude, you do not know how to pick them, man. I mean, really, bad choices. Or could it be that they draw a conclusion, then they answer a question of themselves, and then they take some facts and see and make an observation that leads them to a conclusion. The problem is that each step, they make the wrong choice. So is it that they are dumb or dense or need remedial training? Or it could be that they just don't have a good sequence to get to a good conclusion. I think it's that. I think no one taught them how to do that. I think it's their pattern of thinking. Okay, this equals that, which equals this, which means I should invest $5,000. Oh crap, I lost my $5,000. This equals that and equals this, which means I should invest your $5,000. Oh crap, I lost your $5,000. Or whatever. I think it's a pattern of thinking. So we got another survey. Flip the page. I want you to take this next survey because we're going to see what your patterns of thinking are. So somebody read the first one. Somebody read the first one. No, the first question. Yeah.
Do I take credit for positive events or chalk them up to chance?
Okay, do you take credit for positive events or chalk them up to chance? 1, totally like that, or 1, I'm nothing like that. 10, I'm totally like that. Okay, somebody read the next one. Come on.
When something good happens, do I expect more good things to follow, or do I view positive happenings as a fluke?
Do good things happen because you're good, or do good things happen because you got lucky? All right, somebody read the next one. Okay. Which one are you? Is that you? Does that resonate with you? Okay, somebody read the next one. Loud, though. Come on.
Do I look at one negative event as evidence of more to come, like an omen?
So, do you say to yourself, oh, wow, negatives happened in 3. I can't go out of the house today. That's my wife. She'll text me and say, did you hear such and such a star died? And I'll be like, oh, that's too bad. She's like, someone else is going to die today.
I'm not coming home for a little while.
I'm like, okay, I love you. Okay, next one.
Do I tend to encourage myself mentally, or do I berate myself inside?
Uh-huh. Now we're getting down to the nitty-gritty. And I'll do the last one. Would I talk to a friend or a precious child the way that I talk to myself? I'm paraphrasing it. And you know why I know that word for word? Because I used to be really bad at that. I would never have talked to a child or a good friend the way I talk to myself. And that's a pattern. None of those patterns, would you agree with me, will lead me to continuously improving, correct? Okay, let's even make it more overt. I'm going to give you now some patterns. Lest you think I'm just talking about positive thinking. I'm not just talking about positive thinking here. Let me give you some more patterns. So the first one is what I call magnification minimization. How many of you know somebody that you can sit and tell them 10 great things about them and then give them one small piece of feedback and they walk away saying this, I can't believe you don't like me. Well, I said I really love you. I just told you 10 great things. Yeah, but you said that one thing. How many of you know that person? Mm-hmm. That's called magnification. Or how about this? Minimization. You were awesome. Oh, no, I wasn't. I'm horrible. Don't you know I'm horrible? I'm the worst. No, you're really good. Oh, no, I'm horrible. So they minimize the good thing. Does anybody know somebody in your life? They catastrophize everything. Hello? Yeah, what's going on? The cake didn't rise! And that's a problem? Yes, they will be here shortly! How many of you know that person? It's a catastrophe, don't you know? It is a catastrophe. The world will not revolve. Now, we laugh, but what's it like to work with that person? Walk away. Move away from my cubicle. Yeah. Right? Next pattern. Emotional reasoning. And I guarantee you, every one of us in this room has used this pattern at one time or another. Leanne, I am angry with you, which means you are wrong. Right? Forget about the facts. Forget about circumstances. The fact that I'm angry means you're at fault. Emotional reasoning. Or how about this one? This is another part of emotional reasoning. I feel completely overwhelmed, which means I don't have the capacity to take on my own challenges. I feel completely overwhelmed, which equals I can't do it. You work with people like that. You've been like that, where you felt like the task or the duties were overwhelming, so you said, I'm incapable. That has nothing to do with fact. It has nothing to do with skill. It has nothing to do with ability. It has to do with how you feel. How many of you know somebody that has a pattern of thinking that would be emotional reasoning? Next one. Should statements. So some of you, including myself, we've walked around with a pattern of thinking that revolves around should statements. I should do this, and I should do that, and I should do this, and I should do that. And you know what? There are some things you should do. And yeah, you should feel guilty sometimes that you didn't do those things. But if they dominate you, if they prevent you, if they paralyze you, then that's not a pattern of thinking that's serving you well. Labeling. Once a manager, supervisor, director, leader, or peer places a label on another human being, how many of you agree with me? That label is stuck. So, can I role play with you? So if I say to myself, Peter's a whiner, how hard will Peter have to work to reverse that label that I've put on him with me? How hard? If you ever get to be a manager, you listen to me very clearly, don't you label anybody. Because the day you label them, you might as well just begin progressive discipline and get them out. Because you've written them off. The day you label a kid, the day you label your kid as incapable or doesn't have the potential or won't be or won't do, you might as well just pull up to somebody else's house and give them to that person right there. Because you just wrote them off. That's the power of this pattern of thinking. That once I put you in a box, once I label you, you probably will never get out of that. How many of you agree? How many of you have been a victim of that? Where somebody put a label on you, and no matter what you did to turn that around, you were stuck. And even if you tried 1,000,000 times to show that you weren't that, the one time they'd say, oh, see, you never change. It's a pattern of thinking. Last one. Personalization. This is where we take circumstances and put them on us. This is always a good one I like to use. Walking down the hallway with the multi-millionaire that gave me everything I could have ever hoped to have was walking the other way. Gave me all the breaks, all the chances, everything. He's walking the other way. Just me and him in the hallway. That's all there was. Just me and him. There's nobody else in the hallway. And it's a blank white hallway. And I walked past him and he didn't even acknowledge me. How many of you know that's a sign for you're fired? How many of you know that's... Go back to your office, grab your resume, sharpen it up, start sending it out. That's how I felt. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get fired. I literally went back to my resume and started, I was all freaking out. 2 weeks, And I saw him again. I was like, are you good with my performance? Are you happy with what I'm doing? He's like, of course. I love you. Are you kidding me? You're the best. Blah, blah, blah. I was like, well, do you remember that day walking down the hallway and you didn't even look at me? He's like, I have no idea what you're talking about, he said. Have you ever done that? Where you took and personalized something that the other people couldn't even remember that it even happened? How many of you ever? Pattern of thinking. Now, it's not for me to judge your pattern of thinking. It's more to say this. Is it serving you well? Is the patterns of thinking you're utilizing serving you well? Because if they're not serving you well, what should you do? Change them. If the patterns of thinking you're utilizing are not serving you well, you must change them. It's not up to me to judge your pattern of thinking. I have no idea. I can't judge. I've been every one of those at some time or another in my life and slide back into them all the time. But are they serving you well? Somebody read the box at the bottom. Gotta read loud. Come on. I don't have the handouts in front of me. Read the fucking box.
If any of these feel a little too familiar, that's a good thing. Recognizing a pattern of thinking that isn't serving you well is the first step of moving past it.
There you go. Could we all just accommodate this young lady? We're all reading because of her, just so you know. We should make her read. We should make her read everything. That's right. All right, here we go. Turn the page. All right, so I'm going to give you some patterns. Some different patterns of thinking. The one we'll focus on today for example purposes. Well, side note, we've already focused on one before, and that was a pattern to come up with a creative idea, right? We walked through a sequence of questions that we could ask ourselves. That was a pattern of thinking. Decision making. Somebody tell me the pattern you use to make a good decision. Well, let me back up for a second. Before you answer that, let me ask probably a better question. Have you ever worked for somebody that routinely made bad decisions? Don't raise your hand because it's on film. Don't raise your hand. Don't raise your hand. Okay, but seriously now, have you ever worked for somebody that literally routinely just made bad decisions? Has anybody ever had that? What's it like to work for somebody like that? That is consistently makes bad choices, and you can see it coming. They're going to make another bad decision. Bad decision in hiring, bad decision in course of direction, bad decision in allocation of resources, just constantly makes bad decisions. Has anybody ever experienced that? What's it like? What? Frustrating. What else is it like? How many of you would say it's demotivating? How many of you would say it's draining? Does it make you want to give more or give less? Does it make you want to give your allegiance to the organization or hold back? Isn't it funny? That person's decision making dictates your feeling to the whole organization. Now, with that as a backdrop, somebody tell me the pattern you use to make a good decision. What steps do you take? What thoughts do you think to make a good decision?
I have to know what my end goal is.
Okay, you start with, what do I want to accomplish? Okay, somebody else. Then what do you do?
Possible outcomes.
Okay, think about the possible outcomes. What else? What's that? You look at past experience. Okay, somebody else. Look at the risk involved. Resources available to you. All right, I'm going to walk you through a pattern to make a good decision. Now, let me explain why this is so critical. You as a follower will not give your all to a leader you believe will make a bad decision. You'll hedge your bet. You'll protect yourself. You'll hold back just a little. And your image and vision of the organization is dictated by how you feel about them personally and their capacity and their ability. You will not give your all to a leader that you believe will continually make bad decisions that aren't in your best interest. How many say that that is true? And here's the other thing. You won't believe in the organization either, because you'll start to doubt that the organization put this guy in charge or this gal in charge. And you'll start questioning the leadership all the way up the chain of command because this person can't make a good decision. Am I right or wrong? All the more reason why you personally need to have a good pattern that will take you to good decisions more times than not. Do you need to be perfect? You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be sound in your decision making. And people would begin to trust your decision making. Have any of you ever worked for a boss that made great decisions? And seemingly they always made the right choice. And you were proud to work for them because they always made a good decision. They always made a thoughtful choice. They always made a good selection. They were sound in their thinking. So you were more than happy to give them your dreams, more than happy to give them your effort and your time and your energy because you felt good that they would probably make a good choice with it. Am I right or wrong about that? So if you're going to be an effective leader today, you've got to understand how to make a good decision. And it's not enough that you're good at it, because this is the kicker. This is the kicker. You just being good at it isn't enough. We need to have people up and down the chain of command that are good at making decisions, yes or no, which means you have to be able to teach it. So I might be great at it, but if I can't explain it to her and I can't teach her how to make good decisions, does it really do us any good? But if I'm a good decision maker and I can teach it to him, and then I can have him teach it to somebody else, we'll start to have exponential improvement. We'll have to have continuous improvement because we have an organization where up and down the chain of command, people know how to make good decisions. In his line of work, you teach that. You teach on the ground, right now, crisis decision making. Am I right or wrong about that? Why? Lives are at stake? I got to be trained to make good decisions. We don't leave it to chance. But for most of us, it's left to chance. Okay, so let's walk through the pattern that I would suggest. Now, you don't like my pattern, that's cool, but get one. And be able to explain it to someone else so you can teach good decision making to your kids, to your coworkers, to those that report to you, that those are above you. Good decision making. One, gather the facts. So the first thing I do when I have to make a decision is I gather all the facts. Gather them all. Gather them all. Get as much information as I possibly can. World War II. Eisenhower was in charge of all the Allied forces, the supreme commander. And when he had to make the decision on D-Day, they say he waited to the last possible moment so he could gather every single piece of information possible before he made the decision. Number 2, after I've gathered the facts, I got to check my emotions. But notice what it says in the handout. Not because I want to eliminate emotions. Because sometimes you could make an emotional choice that actually is good. Maybe it's a choice out of passion or zeal or energy or whatever. So notice I put there, check your emotions to see if they're serving you well. Not eliminate emotions, just are they serving me well? Is my emotion impeding me from making a decision, or is it assisting me in making a decision? Like here's one. I'll be loyal to him, and so I'm going to give him an extra shot. And then he goes and he turns it around and he's a great employee. My emotions serve me well there. Loyalty and my feeling of commitment to him then turned him around. Does that make sense? Okay, so sometimes it can serve me well, but sometimes it can serve me poorly. Number 3. I've gathered the facts. I've checked my emotion. What's number 3? I've forgotten. Oh, yeah. Pass it through someone else. Now, here's a funny one for you. There's an old proverb. There's an old proverb that says this: a good king has many counselors. I've always been amazed by that proverb. How come it doesn't say this? A good king doesn't need anybody else. How come it doesn't say a good king can make decisions on their own because they're the smartest guy in the room? A good king is so much better than everybody that they're definitely wise and we can all see it. No, it doesn't say that. It said a good king has many counselors. I can absolutely tell you the day that we started to get all those fancy awards. We started to get all those fancy awards the day I realized I wasn't the smartest guy in the room. That was the day we started to get those fancy awards. When I realized I wasn't the smartest, when I realized I didn't have all the talent, when I realized I didn't have all the capacity, I didn't have all the ability, that not only was I not the smartest, I wasn't even close to being the smartest in the room. Those days, that series of personal revelations then led to all those fancy awards. So, for you, are you willing to pass the decision through someone else? 4. So, I gather the facts, I check my emotions, I pass it through someone else. What's the next one? The long view. Not Longview, Alberta, famous for its jerky. Have you ever been to Longview, Alberta? I've been to Longview, Alberta. Phenomenal jerky. It's a town of 300 people. It's just southern Alberta. It's a gateway. Gateway to the mountains, man. Beautiful area. They'll make you a special brand and belt buckle like they made me. I have my own brand. Put it on my steaks. Awesome. Have you guys not realized in 12 weeks that I'm a diva? Have you guys not figured that out? Come on. Take the long view. What do you mean, Ian? Well, oftentimes we step over dollars to pick up dimes. Listen to that. We step over dollars to pick up dimes. We look for immediate reward when we could have had something better if we would have just waited, because we don't take our decision and extrapolate it all the way out. Here's a better example. I need to go talk to this employee right now. And then I go talk to them and make it worse. Because I didn't think through how they would react. I didn't think through all the people that they would tell. I didn't think through how they would hold a grudge against me for the next 4.5 years. And make sure everything that I tried to do, they submarined and sabotaged. Because I didn't take the long view. Now, that doesn't mean I don't go confront the employee and don't coach them. It just means I stop for a second and think it all the way out. If I make this choice and I were to carry it all the way out, what would the result be? 5. Check the decision against my beliefs. Check the decision against my beliefs. How many of you have ever met a human being that routinely make decisions that are incongruent with what they believe in. Have you ever seen somebody that carries that burden? You ever seen somebody that's being torn apart inside because they know they're doing things that are not congruent with what they believe in their heart? Don't do that. Don't set yourself up for those sleepless nights. Don't set yourself up for the pain that comes along with that and the burden that's carried over a period of time. Why? Because you won't continuously improve. It'll be an impediment to your continuous improvement. And then finally, number 6, pull the trigger. What do you think that means? What do you think that means? Pull the trigger. What does pull the trigger mean? Do it. Have you ever worked for a boss that just won't make a decision? How frustrating is that? In some ways, we'd rather they just make a decision, even if it's a bad one. But notice what we've done here. I've gathered all the facts. I've made sure my emotions are serving me well. I've talked to some other people. I've looked at it all the way out, the best of my ability of what could happen if I make this decision. I've checked my beliefs so I don't get caught in a position down the road where I feel, out of alignment, and then I do it. But when I do it, what can I be assured of to some degree? Because of these previous 5 steps, what can I be assured of? Can I be assured that it will work? No. But I can absolutely justify my decision in the light of day. I can absolutely explain how I got to my decision. And even if you don't like the decision I made, eventually you'll come to respect that I have a pattern that I use to make the decision, so you know I'm just not pulling it out of my you-know-where. So you might not like the decision I made, but you'll know that it's a thoughtful decision. Now, how long do you think this takes? Days? Weeks? Months? Well, if I make it a part of my 80% of my unconscious behavior, it actually could just take minutes. Now, obviously, the graver the decision, the longer this will take. But once I become used to it, I'll just walk through these steps. Whoa, wait a minute now. We got to gather some more information. Hold on. I want to talk to a couple people about this. Well, wait a minute. Give me a day to think it all the way out. What could be the result of you establishing a pattern for making decisions? What could be the result of that? Okay, consistency. And you as a follower, do you trust a leader who's consistent? Yes. Somebody else, what could be the result of it? What could be the result of it? Respect. I'm going to have greater respect amongst those who I lead. Okay, what else? You think I'll make better decisions? I'll probably make better decisions. Or at least I'll make more informed and better supported decisions. Okay, anybody else? Anything else that could come from it?
Confidence in your own skills.
Come on now. Now we're talking confidence in my own ability. There's a lot of talk about believing in yourself or having confidence. But usually it revolves around having confidence in confidence. I want you to believe in yourself. Well, what am I believing in? Yourself! Well, have you looked at myself lately? I suck. Why should I believe in myself? And we laugh about that, but you can't fool yourself. Yourself knows whether you're any good or not. So by me making certain things consistent, I will start to have confidence in my own decision making, because at minimum I'll know that I've taken all the necessary steps to come to a conclusion. And even if it's the wrong one, I can explain it to others. I gain confidence. How many of you have turned down the opportunity? You don't have to show your hands. You have turned down the opportunity for a leadership position because you weren't confident in your own ability. And you and the department suffered when you could have been the leader 9 times over. But you didn't lead because you lacked the confidence. And I would suggest to you, you have a moral obligation to take the talent and ability that you've been given and make the most of it. So if you're one of the people that I just described, and you have turned down leadership opportunities because you didn't have the confidence, you do yourself an injustice, but more importantly, you do all the people that were deprived of your leadership ability and capacity and might have had a better existence because you were willing to lead. It's a pretty selfish step. You say, well, Ian, that's kind of harsh here in the last couple weeks. Yeah. Just being straight up. You know, somebody else could have had a better situation if you would have been willing to lead. If you lack confidence, look to some of these things to develop confidence. So continuous improvement doesn't happen because often we don't have the patterns of thinking necessary to foster it. So whether it's this, whether it's outside the box thinking, are your patterns of thinking serving you well? That's the only question I'm asking. Now, Peter, you like this pattern, you don't like this pattern, I don't care. But be able to know you have one, and more importantly, be able to teach it to someone else. Now, some of you in this room are trained in this. Engineers, first responders, and others are trained to make good decisions, especially moment decisions, especially first responders, but engineers as well, because they're trained in a pattern of thinking. But most of us don't have formal training. How many of you agree with me this needs to be taught to our kids? It needs to be taught to our kids how to make a good decision, but we don't do that. We don't do that anymore. All right, turn the page. Turn the page. I think another step to foster continuous improvement in a group is what we talked about earlier. Shared vision, shared experience, shared victory builds trust. We work together on something, and then we're more likely to work together on things. I believe that the planning process can be that vehicle. How do we build a plan? How do we work with employees to build a plan? Or do we? Or do plans come from up on high, down? So a bunch of people from far, far away come up with a plan, and they tell you that you have to do it. And then you say, well, would you like my opinion? No, not particularly, Peter. We would just like you to do this plan. Well, who developed the plan? We did, all of us up in this 24th floor of Edmonton, or the 7th floor in Fort McMurray, or, frankly, in the 19th floor in Ottawa. Plans developed in really, really high places that come down to the people, and then the people are expected to execute. That's a bad idea. That's not good. I don't care who's watching right now. That's not good. Not only is it not good from the standpoint of you're probably not going to have the most robust plan you could have, but that's not good for today. And why is it not good for today for me to create a plan and hand it to him and say, now go do my plan? Why is that not good for today, in today's environment in our society? Because there's no buy-in. And not just because the warm and fuzzy, I should include him because that's the right thing to do, but because every institution that this gentleman interfaces with gives him a chance to have a say. From the hotel website and the 5 stars, or the 4 smiley faces, to your ability to go to the bank and do your banking, you control the banking experience now. They don't. To the shows that we watch on TV where we dictate the outcome. Almost every institution that an employee works with or interfaces with gives them a say. But then they come to work and they're told this, here's the plan, now go do it. And then we wonder why they don't buy in. They don't buy in because they're like, hello, YouTube gives me a say and you don't even give me a say. Facebook gives me a say and you don't even give me a say. Canadian Idol gives me a say and you don't give me a say. I can build my own truck online and have it delivered here in 2 weeks. How many of you know you can design your truck online and have it delivered? And you won't give me a say? Heck no, I'm not doing this. That's exactly what happens. So the planning process is a tremendous opportunity for us to create a shared vision, shared experience, shared victory, trust, pride, so on and so on. Now, before we can talk about the process, because I want to teach you a process today, before we can talk about that, we have to understand what a plan is. Now, you're going to say, that's too basic, Ian. Oh, look, a plan is just a sequence of steps to get to an outcome. Who should I have build that sequence of steps? The people that have the most knowledge. There are some of you in this room that have a PhD in what you do. See, a PhD is about 10,000 hours. You're a doctor at what you do. You've put in 10,000 hours at what you do. Shouldn't I tap into that? The concept is called tapping into the collective intelligence. What do you think the collective intelligence is? What's the collective intelligence? Your workforce. So you, there's a 3, 6. There's 6 of you right here. You have different life experiences. You have different backgrounds. You have different talents. You have different perspectives on life. There's 2 ways that I can manage. One way would be this. I'm the boss, and I got here because I'm so smart. And because I'm so smart, you will all listen to me. Because obviously you're not as smart as me, because if you were, you would be here and I would be there, but I'm not. And you're not. So you will do what I say. How many of you experienced that leadership style? But a smart leader who's leading today in today's environment would say this. You have a different life experience than me. 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 And all of you collectively have more years of experience at this than I do. And since you'll probably have to implement the plan, I should probably give you a say, because you're either going to work 8 hours for me or you're going to work 8 hours against me. And it'll probably be based on how much I involve you in the decision-making process. How many agree with that? So I've got to figure out some way to get your feedback, your information, your insight, and your wisdom. You've gone to the meetings. Haven't you gone to this meeting? All right, everybody, we're going to get together. We're going to come up with some ideas. We got some problems around here, and we're going to get them fixed today. So as you can see, there are white pieces of paper on the wall. I'd like you to take these markers, and I'd like you to write your ideas. And then we're going to do something really, really cool. I'm going to give you these sticky dots, and you're going to vote on the ideas that you think are the best. And this is going to be great. How many have ever done that? And then when we're done, we're all going to hold hands and sing Kumbaya. It will be wonderful. How many of you have done that? Well, maybe not the Kumbaya part, but the dots. And then 2 weeks later, nothing changes. And you sit there the next meeting and go like this. All right, everybody, we're going to get ideas. We need ideas. We got some problems around here. And you go like this. And nobody gives an idea. And nobody makes a suggestion. And so we preclude all of the knowledge and the insight and the wisdom that's in the collective intelligence. We never bring it to bear. We never tap into it to use it to solve the multifaceted, complex challenges that we face that no one human being could possibly solve. So, do I need to come up with great ideas, or do I need to create an environment where great ideas will come forward? An environment where those ideas are then prioritized. It's not enough for them just to come forward, where they're prioritized. And then after they're prioritized, there's some way that we take the best of them and implement them. And then bring them to fruition. Listen to that cycle. Even write it down. If you have a half a brain in your head, don't just look at me, write it down. The teacher says it 3 times, write it down. So 1, I've got to have some way to draw out the ideas. 2, I must have some way to prioritize the ideas. 3, I have to take those best of those ideas and have some way to implement them. And then 4, I have to bring them to fruition. So it's not enough just to create some kind of way to grab ideas, because after you've given 7 of them and you see nothing happen with them, will you stop giving them? Yes. That's why the suggestion box gets gum and cigarette butts. Because everybody says it doesn't matter anyways. Or because I know nothing will come of them. Okay. So what we're going to do now is teach you a way to tap into the collective intelligence. Now you will say, this kind of sounds like we're going to brainstorm. It is, but there are some nuances to it. Some nuances to it. You should be able to walk into any group, look at these people and say, I'm going to facilitate a discussion that will draw out a great idea. Make sense? Okay, step number 1. So, let's just pretend it's this group right here. I'm going to bring them together. When I bring them together, the first step I'm going to do is we're going to mutually agree on what it is we're trying to solve. So this approach we'll use for a problem-solving approach. We're going to solve a problem. So we're going to clarify and define the problem that we're trying to solve. We're going to mutually agree and define the problem. The problem. Bless you. Define the problem or clarify the objective. You say, Ian, you never write clearly on the board. When I don't know how, if you haven't learned it yet, if I don't know how to spell it, what are you getting? That's what you're getting right there. Sorry, not the sharpest pencil in the box. Took the short bus to school. Okay. Then, once we've defined and mutually agreed what the problem is, we're going to establish a set time frame to throw out ideas. Throw out ideas. Well, yeah, Ian, this sounds just like that meeting with the white paper. Follow me. Not exactly. Just work with me here. Then, we're going to do nothing but solicit ideas. So, for that time frame, we're just writing down all the ideas. Now, normally what happens next is this. Normally, then we start to evaluate all of those ideas. That's what typically happens. We start to evaluate. We start to say, well, you know what, I don't know, Shelley, I don't know if I really like that idea. You know, that idea, this and that and that and this and that and this. And as soon as I start to beat up Shelley's idea, what does Shelley say in her mind? Besides jerk. What else does she say? Never again. She says never again. That fundamental step that we normally take defeats the brainstorming or tapping into the collective intelligence. And it stops it in its tracks. Because Shelley says, okay, that's not happening again. I'm not hanging myself out like that. And that's why everybody sits in a room like this. So what do? We have to depersonalize those ideas first. I call them combining and refining. We got to combine and refine. By combining and refining, these like ideas, and these like ideas, and these like ideas, and these like ideas, and these like ideas. As soon as we do that, we depersonalize them. Now it's Shelley's ideas just mixed in with everybody else's. I'm not exposed like I could be. In addition to that, how many of you agree with me, there are times where I'm going to guess Peter's idea just because it came out of Peter's mouth. So we avoid all of those interpersonal challenges and all that silliness. We avoid it by combining and refining. Then we assess. And we assess for effect. Notice, we don't assess for financial. We don't assess for clarity. We just assess for effect. Will it have the effect that we want, that idea? So, 1, define, clarify the objective. 2, set a time frame, throw out the ideas. Then we combine and refine. We do not analyze or assess until we combine and refine to depersonalize. When we go to analyze or assess, we do it from the lens of effect, through the lens of effect. Then, once I've done that, what's the next one? Prioritize. So once I've done this, I'm going to go through and prioritize what's the best. This is the best, and then this is the best, and then this is the best, and then this is the best idea. And that's the best idea to solve the problem. Once I've prioritized or identified what we mutually agree is the best, and this is the kicker, now I'm going to establish the task list and timeline. So it'll sound just like this. This is what it sounds like. Okay, I think we all agree, we've heard from everybody, we all agree that this idea is the best idea. Okay, based on that, what tasks will we have to do to make that happen? Now listen, this is what's interesting. Am I telling them what to do? Well, to some degree, I've defined the problem. I've told them what they're working on. I have told them the what. But who's getting to determine the how? They're getting to determine the how. So I'm not saying that all of us in the room will be able to determine the what and the why. But the more that we can determine the how, the more we empower. There's a lot of talk about empowerment, but it's usually hollow talk because we're truly not empowering. But as soon as I let you determine the tasks, and then I say to you, okay, give me the timelines that we can do that. So the group gives me the task. Well, Ian, we'll have to do this, 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 we'll have to do this. And then I say, okay, tell me, when can we get those done by? Well, we could probably get that done in 1 week. We could get that done in 3 weeks. We could get that done in 1 month. And we could probably get that done in 90 days. So them building the task list and the timeline empowers them. It's not being done to them. Write this down in some white space free of charge. I will do things with people and not to them. I will do things with people and not to them. Because when I do things with people, I give them a sense of self-reliance. I give them a sense of self-determination. I give them a sense of pride. I give them a sense of ownership, and I'll probably build a better plan. Now, by them building the task list and the timeline, whose plan has it become? It's their plan now. I did define where we were headed, but I let them build the path. Well, yeah, Ian, but what if you don't agree with their timeline? If I need to adjust the timeline, I'm going to think of the long view. In other words, if they're telling me a week longer than I want, I would say to myself, if that week, is it worth it? Am I going to fight them on the week, or would I rather just get their buy-in and give them the week? Does that make sense? So am I going to be that leader that I demonstrated earlier, or am I going to just be like, okay, you guys think it's 2 weeks? 2 weeks. As long as it's within those broad values and principles or time frames, I'm going to give them the week. Because I know it's going to pay greater dividends down the road. Okay, then what? Well, once they have built the task list and the timeline, my only job is what? What's my only job? My only job is to follow through. My only job is to follow through. All I do now is this: make sure that the timelines and the task list is complete. I bring the group back together a week later and say, how are we doing? And then what? Let's say that one of them didn't do what they were supposed to do. What do I say? What do I say? She didn't do what she said she was going to do on the task list in the timeline that she said she was going to do it. She said she would do this, and she said she would do it in a week, and now she hasn't. What do I do? Do I have to beat her up? Do I have to attack her? Do I have to hit her on the head? All I have to do is this. So how are we doing with this? Well, you picked it, right? I did pick it. And you said it would be done in this time? Yeah. That's all I got to do. I just got to look at her. Do I have to have any other accountability? No, my accountability is just, well. Now, we laugh, but how powerful a force is that? You picked the timeline. You picked the task. I didn't tell you. Now, if I had told her the timeline, and if I had told her the task, what's her immediate response going to be? I told you I couldn't get it done. I told you it was unrealistic. People have always told me that there's no way humanly possible to give more freedom and at the same time give more and take more control. I just showed you a way that I'll give more freedom and actually take more control. Because when the day of reckoning comes and she didn't do it, all I have to say is this: you pick the timeline, you pick the task. What's going on? Total accountability. I'll give you 100% freedom, but there's 100% accountability. Just her knowing that she's going to have to sit in that room and deal with that, she's either going to call in sick or she's going to get it done. Right? And she'll probably get it done. This piece where we task list and timeline, giving them the freedom, develops three important things. Now look at where we first started. Go back to the page where we first started talking about this. Right there it says effective planning, and then it gave you 5 things that you may not have considered. It's between the 2 gray boxes. So here's the 5 things you may not have considered when we talk about using other people to build a good plan. The first thing you may not have considered as a positive result is self-reliance. What's self-reliance? Quick. What's self-reliance? Self-reliance is when this young lady right here begins to take it upon herself to take care of herself. If you as a leader had a bunch of people around you that really fostered self-reliance in all that they did, would that be good for you? So I want to build policies and procedures that cultivate self-reliance. Now this is a more broader social statement. Policy is my belief, and I'm speaking for myself and not anybody else, that policies that we implement should foster self-reliance. That's what I advocate when I talk to people in Ottawa and other places. That level of leader, I say, make sure you build policies that foster self-reliance. Because if the policies don't foster self-reliance, does that serve us well in the long run, yes or no? No. If they foster dependency, is that good for you? That's not good for you. We need people who are self-reliant. Secondly, when we use this kind of approach to planning, we foster self-determination. An individual gets to decide for them. Not necessarily the why or the what, but they get to have a say in the how. And if they get to have a say in one of those three things, they can't have a say in the why. Okay. They can't have a say in the what. All right. But at least give them a say in the how. And doesn't it just common sense? They got 10,000 hours in the thing. You got like 3. Let them. Give some input and do it their way. Remember, there's a big difference between consultation and engagement. Consultation is, oh, by the way, here's what we plan to do. What do you think? Engagement is this. You tell me the time, you tell me the tasks. I just need to get over there. Okay, so self-reliance, self-determination. Third, pride. You'll foster pride. Because as people have this shared experience and people have shared victory, they will take greater pride. 4, trust. You will trust me. You will trust the process. You will trust the organization. 5, better plans. You will just inherently build better plans. And not necessarily because the plan will be better. And this is really important. So everybody's eyes up real quick. Eyes up real quick. Not just because the plan is better because they helped build it, but because they're more likely to own the implementation of it. How many of you have ever been involved with a situation where there was a great plan, but the implementation sucked? And it's usually based on their commitment to the plan. If they build the plan, they're going to be more likely to implement with their whole heart. As opposed to, okay, we built this plan last week, 5 of us on a little retreat that we had. Now good luck in its implementation. Have a great time. And we've all, to some degree or another, experienced that. Those are 5 things that we usually don't take into consideration. Here's the other thing that normally happens. One of your managers, supervisors, directors goes to a seminar, hears this kind of talk, and come back to all of you and says, okay, I'm going to get you guys involved in the plans because you guys are important. You guys are really, you're going to be involved in the plans from now on. And then they take some really big problem and say, now help us solve this. How many have ever experienced that? And all of you say, the hell I will. So if you ever wanted to implement this, here's where you would start. You would start on something really small. Something really small. Something that's irritating to all of us that we'd like solved, but something small. And then you would do another small one and solve that. And then you would do another small one and solve that. And then eventually you would work your way up to your take on a big challenge that has some emotional or jugular effect. Why? Why would we want to start this with something really small in just a small group and then work our way up to something that's more jugular or more emotional or more important? Perfect. Leanne said it right. You're building trust. Building trust in what, though? In the process, in me as the leader, in the authenticity of our desire or our intentions. One of the biggest mistakes organizations make is, and leaders make is, they try to take something like this and they go first for a big problem. We're going to get the employees' input on this big problem. But the employees don't give input because there's nothing to base that trust or belief in. So employees hold back a little bit because they don't know what's going to come of it all. Are we all going to, if we give our opinion, are we all going to get fired? Are we all going to have this labeled against us for the next 20 years of our career? So you know what, I'll just hold back. Thanks for letting me be on the committee, but let me just hold back a little bit and see how the thing rolls. Am I right or wrong about this? So if you really want to tap into collective intelligence, you understand that and you say, let me start with a small thing just with the 6 or 7 of us. And then let's do it right. 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 Here's another example. Union and management. Union and management say we're going to start solving problems together. And usually the first thing they take on is some big problem. And they try to tackle the big problem. But because it's a jugular emotional issue, it's not going to get tackled because there's no foundation of trust. So instead, start with something small, something we can knock down, something we can take care of, bringing it to more of a community level. That's why Let Them Be Kids does playgrounds. Because who is against the playground? Besides the old surly man that no one wants to talk to anyways in town. I'm just kidding. Most people, it's apolitical. No one's against it. So the reason we picked playgrounds to bring the 400 and 500 and 800 people together around was because we knew that most people could get their hearts and minds around it. And then get them to have a shared vision. They all work together. They build it in one day. They all feel good. There's community pride that's built. Now let's take on something more jugular, more serious, more challenging. Well, that can't work in a municipal. What do you mean? How would that philosophy work? City of London. City of London. What? City of London, Kipps Lane. I don't know what you're talking about. Well, the Human Rights Commission came into the municipality, the City of London. There was so much conflict between the union and management at the City of London that literally the Human Rights Commission came in. I mean, that's pretty bad. And what I said to them was, I got a better solution. I said, the union negotiators, management negotiators, you're going to serve on a committee and we're going to build a playground at Kipps Lane. And then 300 city employees came out in one day and built the playground. And how many of you already know they got along better after that? Why? Shared vision, shared experience, shared victory. And I think we can take some of those basic principles and apply them. And how do I know that to be true? You just experienced it over the last 14 days. Shared vision, shared experience, shared victory. And you know what? Now would be the time to take on some challenges because there's a really good feeling going around, right? But how many of you know that opportunity will dissipate, won't it? And in 90 days, we'll be back to the grind of this thing. In 90 days, the person you're high-fiving, you'll be like this, I hate that witch. I can't believe I thought they did a great job. They did a horrible job during the flood. You and I both know. Am I right or wrong? Good leaders recognize that we're not going to wait for the crisis. We're going to use these opportunities to continuously improve. But we're not going to take it as a one-off. We're not taking it as a one-off. We're going to do it before it needs to be done. Because if I try to solve problems, by the time they've become the mushroom cloud, how difficult are they to solve? Virtually impossible. That's why starting small and then creating this as a part of just the way we do things. This is how we solve problems. Or this is how we build a budget. Those of you that are involved in departments where your manager is actively engaging you and utilizing your talents and your interests and your experiences to help build the budget, you're going to have better budgets. They're just going to be better budgets. Because you operationally know, and you're more likely to walk that budget out. Because you had input. Okay. Somebody tell me something we got about 10 minutes. Somebody tell me something you're taking away from this. What do you observe about this? Or what could be the benefit of this? Oh, side note. Saying right now in your own mind, well, my boss doesn't do this. Well, I don't know what your boss does because I'm not talking to your boss right now. I'm talking to you. So when you have an opportunity to be in a position of leadership, this is the approach that you'll utilize or something that at least has the philosophies of what we're talking about. Just because you're not led properly, and I'm not saying you are or you're not, but don't think you can excuse yourself because you don't have the leadership you think you need. Poor leadership above you does not absolve you of the responsibility of being a good leader yourself. Somebody tell me something or some benefit you could derive from utilizing this kind of an approach. Yes, sir.
Self-actualization.
Self-actualization. So I see it and I make it a reality. I see it, I make it a reality. I see it, I make it a reality. That's what you're talking about, right? That's big. That's huge. Huge. Somebody else. What would be a positive benefit of this kind of an approach? Trust building. I do this 6 times. We are going to be like this as a team. We might not agree with each other. We might not like each other. But as we go through the process of doing it, we'll better understand each other. For sure. Just like 100 years ago when we built the place of faith together. Just like 100 years ago when we built the recreational opportunity together or the road together. That's what this vehicle can be. We create a shared vision, a shared experience, and a shared victory. Somebody else. What are you taking away from this? Or what could be a positive benefit of it? Better plans. Do we have time to have crappy plans? When you think about all that you guys have going on around here and all that you'll have going on around here for the next 10 years. You don't have time for crappy plans. You got to have great plans. And not just the formal leaders. You, the informal leader, the mid-level and front-line leader without a title or with a entry-level title. We need you to be great leaders. Because if you're great leaders, that changes the whole culture of the organization. Change from the middle can happen. But it takes a certain amount of critical mass to create it. And that's you. Small groups of people, properly motivated, focused on a common goal, not caring who gets the credit, always changes the world. Small groups of people, properly motivated, focused on a common goal, not caring who gets the credit, always changes the world. That's not true, Ian. Okay. Is it large groups of people who only care about themselves, only focused on their own interests? Is that who changes the world? No, they never change the world. It's the first group. Well, that's you. And the other 87 people or 29 people, whatever it is, that are participating, watching via the archive. That's you. Combined with some of the like-minded people that went through Boot Camp 1. We should have a good critical mass of at least 150 people. And that good critical mass should be able to take some of these concepts, maybe not the exact ideas, maybe not the exact steps, maybe not the exact words, but the concepts. I've never told you that this stuff is the Bible. Have I ever told you that? I've never said this is the Quran, this is the Bible, this is the whatever, this is Gandhi's teachings. I've never said that. What I've challenged you to do is look at them and provoke some thought. Patterns of thinking are there. How are yours, and are they serving you well? Not these are the patterns you should use. You don't like my decision-making pattern? Just get one and be able to teach it to another human being. Don't like this way of tapping into the collective intelligence? Fine, I don't care, but get one. Because you need to be able to tap into the collective intelligence. So this has never been about, for 12 weeks, has never been about my way is the best way. Because my way is just one way. But you better have a way. And you better put it in your toolkit. And you better make it part of the 80% of your unconscious behavior. Okay. What's going to happen next? So next week when we meet, I'm going to give you a final assignment. And some of you will be surprised, but some of you may know what it is. I don't care. There's a final assignment. And you have 10 days, you'll have 10 days to complete that final assignment. Now the funny thing about the final assignment is I'll never know if you do it or not. And I'll explain that next week. But I'll never know if you do anything with your final assignment. And I'll never ask you if you do anything with that final assignment. That's just between you and you. Now, some of you may choose to tell me what you do with the final assignment. That's fine. But you won't be required. It's between you and you. Because that's what leadership's about, isn't it? Leadership is about holding yourself accountable. We'll give out certificates. I've already talked to you about that. And we'll do a recap of the overall program. But just because the last time we meet next week, or last time we will meet will be next week, won't mean we're over. We'll have one more week of emails where we unpack some of these concepts. Next week, even during the time that we meet, you're going to get 3 emails next week where we unpack some of the concepts that would support this. Everything from how do we set up a room to make it more conducive for engagement, to what questions do we ask. So what questions do I actually ask? And I'll give you all of the questions that you might ask to facilitate this kind of a dialogue. And then finally, we'll unpack another concept of tapping into the collective intelligence as well, so that you have multiple tools in your toolkit. But make no mistake, we're coming to the end. And as we wrap up for today, we got 4 minutes left. Somebody tell me, why did we do this project? Because remember, this was a project. So do I know if there'll be another leadership boot camp? I don't know. Not anytime soon, I can tell you that. There won't be one anytime soon. I love you guys, but I had enough of you. Let me tell you that right now. And you guys have probably had enough of the chubby brown man, for sure. Right? I love you, but hey, you know, I got to be with my kids sometimes. So I know that there's not one, it's not happening anytime soon. So why did we do this project? Does anybody remember why we did this? What was the point? So all those arrows, she's pointing out, because we had all kinds of arrows going in different directions and we want them to go all in one direction. That's absolutely true. Why else? Who remembers why? Because if you don't remember the why behind this, it won't mean as much. It's just another training program. So why did we do this? Become better leaders. But why do we want? We wanted to be better as a municipality. Why?
I think it would be a shorter time. You need to change much faster than what you may have been used to. One of the triggers of the game is you need to adapt quicker, decide better.
You're right, and you're right. But neither one of the three of you told me why. You told me the output, but you didn't tell me what we hope the impact would be. What do we hope the impact of is this? Shh, say it. Because 75,000 citizens are counting on you to be better. And bigger and broader than that, and if you didn't understand that or see that from the latest situation, in this community, what's the hub of this community? You are. Not every community, the municipality is the hub. Not every community. This community, you are the driver. You don't believe it? Watch the interview from the CEO of Keanu when he sat there and praised the RMWB employees. You are the catalyst for this community. Primarily because you have a lot of different people from a lot of different places, and the only thing that they have that connects each other is RMWB. So you have that. But you have something else. And some of you have forgotten it, so I'll remind you. It is my belief that you have an opportunity to build a city. To build a city that could be something special. In today's day and age, people don't have what you have. You have the resources to build a city. You got a lot of money in comparison to other municipalities across North America. You have the talent to build a city. You have people from all over the world here. And you have the opportunity to build a city. You have the money, the talent, and the opportunity. You see what you mean by opportunity. You think they're building a city in Whitby, Ontario? Nothing against I love Whitby. It's just right by Oshawa. I love it. It's great. But they're landlocked. They don't have all the money. And their things are deeply ingrained. That doesn't mean they're not a great city. It is a great city. It's won numerous awards for public works and things of that nature. But they don't have the opportunity you have. You're building it from scratch for the most part. Wow. That's a great opportunity. There's a guy in the other program, he sent me a note. He said, Ian, you know what I've been thinking about? I've been thinking about 2,500 years from now, how will people remember Fort McMurray? Will we be a city that defined history? Will be a city that is still talked about 2,500 years from now? And his point was that he got to be involved because he's a planner. And his point was, I get to be involved in the planning of that. Wow, the opportunity. Ian, I just got my kids, and this is a pretty good job, and I'm just, come on, dude. Don't put that on me. Okay, that's fine. I'm just telling you what I believe you could be. I believe that you could create something very, very special. I believe you are creating something very, very special. But the gap between that ideal and today is more leaders. Not formal leaders. Not formal leaders. We don't need more formal leaders. Right? You already said that earlier. We don't need more formal leaders. We need leaders at all levels. That's why this program, your guys' track, is called Leadership at All Levels. We need people like you to get enthused about the opportunity of doing something special, taking some of the ideas here or some of the ideas you've heard from others, and going back and implementing. Yeah, but my boss. I don't care about your boss. I'm talking about you. You. And what will you do with this opportunity? And will you leave a legacy for kids and for families and for people you've never met or never talked to? That's the beauty of being in the public service business. You're not making widgets every day. You do something that touches every citizen from cradle to grave. And I thank you for it. So our last time together will be next week, and then we'll wrap up over the next 3 weeks. Have a great afternoon.
You too.